Welcome to Sales Talk for CEOs. I'm glad you're here. I'll be interviewing CEOs who have successfully scaled their B2B sales organization. In each episode, I'll start by uncovering the sales background of each CEO, dig into the strategies they use to build their sales organization, and wrap it up with what the future holds. We'll cover the good, the bad, and the ugly of scaling a sales organization. I'm your host, Alice Hyman. So excited to be talking with Catherine Dahl this morning. She is in Vancouver area in British Columbia, and I was fortunate enough to meet her at a conference called Ace Tech, where I got to hear her tell her grueling story about starting her business and then making some changes. And of course, we're going to talk about all that. But I want to welcome Catherine, the CEO of Beanworks, who was recently acquired by Quadient. And we're going to hear some more about that. So welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Alice. It was lovely to meet you in Whistler, and I'm really looking forward to this podcast.
Yeah, so tell us about what Quadient does, and maybe just walk us into it with why they acquired Beanworks and what that allows them to offer, along with the other acquisitions they've made, to all of their customers.
Thanks. Yeah. So Beanworks is an AP automation platform. And so what we do is we help businesses in any industry and pretty much any size, although we tend to stick in the mid-market in terms of size, sort of SMB, larger SMBs to smaller enterprise businesses. And we help them ingest paper and digital invoices, process them internally from a workflow perspective, and just put the data into their accounting system. So that's what we do. And Quadient is a 100-year-old, just shy. They're about 2 years away from hitting their 100-year anniversary. They've been around for a long time, and they've morphed time and had to, obviously, over 100 years and different economic situations, technology developments and such had to evolve. They grew a lot through acquisition, but they started as a mail machine business. So they were formerly called Neopost, which some folks might recognize because they only rebranded in 2019. They're kind of the Pitney Bowes of Europe in that sense, and a lot of people know that brand. They are fairly large in North America, but they're really big in Europe. They're based in Paris, and what was happening in Europe is there's a government legislation in place now that by 2024, invoices between businesses must go paperless, which is phenomenal from an environmental perspective, and certainly fantastic digital transformation escalator, along with COVID, which also escalated that process. But what happened is that Quadient recognized that 80% of what was going through their mail machines was B2B invoices, especially in Europe. And in that world, that means 80% of their multi-billion euro business suddenly declines. So they've spent the last several years doing another rejuvenation strategy process. They would have had to have done that many times, I'm sure. And they're in this back to growth strategy by going out and acquiring software companies. And the way I equate it is they're kind of like Blockbuster trying to become Netflix in the world of the mail space or communication space. So they really put together four solutions. One they bought several years ago, which is a communication automation platform. They then made internally a smaller lower market version of that that also includes document management and hybrid mail combinations of things that it does. That's referred to as intelligent document automation. And then they went out and looked for an accounts receivable solution and an accounts payable solution that would help with this digital transformation. So in 2021, in 2020, they bought YayPay, which is a US-based AR collections automation platform. And then they bought us in early 2021 to kind of complete the suite. And then, they're still looking at other synergistic products that will help round out this sort of new category that they're referring to as intelligent communication automation, which is just, again, like the best analogy I say that makes the most sense to me is just they don't want to be a Blockbuster or Kodak. They want to make
Right, right. Don't want to be a dinosaur, extinct.
and they've done a great job of maintaining that rejuvenation process. Obviously, I think, in the world of technology, anybody that's been around 100 years has had to reinvent themselves as a business multiple times. And so they're doing it again. And, hopefully we're going to help them succeed in that venture.
Well, I'm sure you will. And I understand from our chat prior to recording, you are going to be doing quite a bit, or already are doing quite a bit of traveling from Canada to Europe to help with that market there.
Yeah, that was the big initiative in 2022, or the end of 21 and beginning of 22, is to launch in France and a launch in the UK. And so we did do that earlier this year. That meant our software, which had really predominantly been in North America, and we had a very light presence outside of North America, had to be localized for a global market, which is great because we're one of only 3 solutions in the world that can be multilingual, that is also a cloud, that is also modern and has great UI. That would probably narrow it down to 2. So it gives us actually, I'm not totally sure if the one I'm thinking of is actually in multilingual. They might be multi-currency, but being in different languages is definitely a challenge, because accounting, albeit standardized, there are slightly different nuances in how things are referred to in different languages. So we're now in French and English, which is great in our new UI, and we'll be launching that new UI in Canada later this year. So our French Canadian users can finally have their appropriate language. But getting it localized in terms of currency, date format, and that, it actually required us rebuilding the entire front end of the system. So we're about 60% of the way there. And we still have a few more pieces of the puzzle to redo, but it's exciting, and it makes it a more scalable, easy to change version. We upgraded our tech stack to a more modern tech stack, so we like to really just stay ahead of the curve on that stuff. Technology changes constantly, so we're in our 5th iteration of the user interface, which I can say is not the case with our competitors. So we're constantly looking at what the market is, the attributions of the market are. We're constantly looking for the white space of competing to be unique, competing against ourselves and not against a particular competitor.
Yeah, that's an exciting position to be in, and I love the charge to get everybody paperless and have it be efficient and have these tools available. Certainly for small business, it's really important. And I know that most small business owners have a lot of other things on their mind. That SMB and mid-market, they need these kinds of tools, because if they had to do this by themselves internally, it would be impossible. So it's a really important type of service that your company's providing, and I love that. Now, you started Beanworks with your cohorts that I see in the photo behind you. I love that photo. So tell us, Catherine, what were you doing right before you started Beanworks, and what gave you and your co-founders the idea, like, we should start a company?
Yeah, it's always, everyone asks that question, like we somehow had this moment of the clouds open and the sun on me. I should invent AP automation. Not the case with us at all. I'm an accountant. Just before getting involved in the first version of this company, I was working for myself, because I'd been working for CBC actually as a finance manager, and found the job to be lacking in terms of the skill set I like to exercise. Lovely people, love CBC, but yeah, it just wasn't really a job meant for somebody who was more of an operational accountant and really liked to understand numbers and use them to modify the direction of the business. And that's really why I became an accountant in the first place. I didn't become an accountant to actually do like month end. So and I had young kids, and so I thought, I'll just work for myself. I'll do fractional controllership. I'll consult. And so I did that part-time, and I fell upon this. I ended up working in conjunction with the first CEO of the first version of this company called Bean Services. The product was called Bean Bills. And it was really probably, realistically, the way it was designed, it was probably more like Expensify. It was meant to get rid of expense reimbursement. And it didn't, that's not really what he said when he showed it to me, but when I think back and look at how it was built, That's really what it was designed to do. It was designed to collect a bunch of receipts, put them into a table,
Yeah.
code them, and put that information in, because that's where he got the idea. He was a CFO of a
Okay.
company where their biggest problem was expense receipt management and not really payables. So, but
Okay.
he called it a payable solution, and so we were trying to deploy it in as a payable solution, and the first UI was really not adequate for that. So I ended up coming in more and joining his company, became his COO, CFO, and head of product. Of like, there were 5 or 6 people, so it was very small. And that company unfortunately didn't succeed. It had some shareholder investor issues and had the rug pulled out from under it. But we had some handful of customers that were paying us and some that were about to pay us. So the 3 out of the 4 original co-founders were working at that company at the time. The UI, the front end designer, the other woman in that photo was running customer support. Myself, the CEO was like, "There's money here. There's an opportunity here. I just don't think I can take it there. So why don't you guys do it?" And I was like, "Well, that sounds like I shouldn't be doing this," because I at the time was injured with my back, and I didn't know what my future looked like, and it was just a very difficult time. But I also had said, sort of stuck my neck out professionally in my industry and said, in a national accounting magazine, that this is the future of accounting, and I am charging ahead with it. And so I, in my tenacious personality, said I can't not do this. So we just did it, and it was not really. It was I'd say we didn't really. Did we choose to do it? I don't know. We kind of felt like we had to do it, and we had one customer in particular who did not want to lose the software. So it was a private property management company, and so he became the owner of that became our first investor. He said, "How can I help?" And then the rest is history. We grew the company from there. Bumbled along. We had to rebuild the platform, move the customers from one to the other. Actually, we kind of learned a lot in the experimenting with the first one. We didn't have good product market fit on that product, but we understood what was wrong with it, and we're like, okay, we now can take that information, create a better one, and then move customers over, and then get us. And then once we got there, we ran into this. That was like, say, the first 4 years, because we were really underfunded, and so we were bootstrapping a lot. And so it took more to do that than probably should have. It probably should have been 2 years, but either way, it took 4 years to get there. And we got in 2016, we finally could shut off the old platform. And then I was like, now how do I get sales moving? That was the problem. So I'll stop there. So you can ask.
Yeah. No, this is interesting, because sometimes I call it accidental entrepreneurship, right?
Yeah,
It's
100%. That's what.
I didn't mean to be an entrepreneur. I just,
what did I do?
And I think,
yeah,
it was such a good idea, though. And I know you mentioned that, your back was not good, but you stated out loud that you were going to do it, and you were like, okay, now I have to do it.
Yep.
So here we go. And sounds like you guys made some mistakes along the way, which, so many of us do when we start our companies. But now it sounds like at this point where you ended just now, you had a good product, you had the product market fit. So it was time to help the company take off. So in those early days, who was doing the selling?
Oh, me. But we were really trying not to sell, right? Like, we didn't want new customers. We already had 20 customers from the first company that we basically had to get rolled out properly. Like, maybe 3 or 4 of them were actually paying us. And then I had to convince the rest of them to start paying us by a certain date in order for us to fund our first year. Like, we kind of bootstrapped the first year on $100,000, and we managed to pull it off. And there were six of us that were paid. Although 2 of us took next to no money we just like, well, I have a mortgage. I'm not wealthy. I need to pay I have bills I have to pay. My husband didn't make enough money to cover everything. So, and Tracy, her husband did. So she said, I can probably take next to nothing for the first 6 months, but take more equity.
Oh, wow.
We did a better equity split for her and I to take on less cash. And then we funded, then we were able to hire Reza, who came in May of that first year. But he obviously wasn't going to work totally for free either. So a lot of our people had to work for way below market salaries, but they needed something to live on. And so we're like, okay, with the revenue we had every month and $125,000 Canadian, we actually can break even in year 1, which we did. So we had $250,000 in sales that year. Because we started with that, and we just didn't.
And that was so from existing customers is what you're saying. All you had to do was maintain those existing
Well, and roll them out
customers.
because
Yeah.
we had some that weren't working on the system yet. So we had to get them to
Okay.
actually start paying us, and that meant they had to be on the platform and it had to be working. And so there, and I used to joke to say that the old platform was like it was like a car. You're in a car, or maybe let's say it's a bus with 20 people on it, and it keeps breaking. But you can't stop the car to fix it, so you got a little crew underneath there fix little mini
Fix it while you were driving.
while you're driving, and that was our first 2 years. Because
Oh my
the platform was
gosh.
so unstable, and so it just kept breaking all the time. So we're just like, oh yeah, okay. It's fundamentally the technology and the code and everything was just someone referred to it as spaghetti code. It didn't have a good technical leader behind it, so it's why we had to find a good technical leader. So we even I was like, okay, mistakes of the first company, let's not make those again. So we found a really good technical consulting company to come in and advise us on architectural structure.
Oh,
Because
good.
we knew what we needed it to be in the future. We're like, this has to grow to scale to a very large number of customers.
Yeah.
Has to have lots of volume of AP going through it, storage of lots of documents. It has to handle multiple. Our system is like Salesforce. It's a multi-entity, multi-tenant. So which is not. You can have multi-entity where you can toggle between entities, but this is multi-tenant inside multi-entity, which means you can see all the entities in one view, and all documents can come in for 100 companies, and you get one table with all the documents. And if I tell it this is company one, the next field knows where to go get the coding lists for that company, and I don't have to
Yeah.
toggle between companies, which is like QuickBooks Online is multi-entity but not multi-tenant. So you can't see two
Wow.
companies at once. You can see a dashboard where they put a layer to try to show you some information from them, but you can't literally combine the entities into one thing, which is what our platform does quite uniquely, actually. And that's one of our competitive advantages especially in the smaller market where we get customers, QuickBooks customers with, like say 20 companies. Like a lot of entrepreneurs, they
Yeah.
buy up other small companies, they keep them all separate for tax purposes. And
Yeah.
so, but they got basically separate books for all of them. And a handful
Right.
of payables for each one. So you're the accounts payable person, and you got to open up a different company every time, code the invoice.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Pain in the butt. Yeah.
We eliminate that with one button, right? So you're like, okay, and we auto code most of the invoices for them. So they just hit a button, it's coded. They hit another button, someone approves it. They hit a third button, and off it goes into the QuickBooks. And so it's very fast. So we do that across all the mid-market key products in North America. So Sage. Main Sage products, and we just entered Microsoft. We've been into it for a long time with QuickBooks Online, Sage Intacct, NetSuite. So that's the
Wow.
gamut that we go through. Can't remember what your question was now.
Yeah, so that first year, so you got through that first year, you got everybody onboarded and onto the platform, and you collected the money. Woo, okay. And then at what point, there you were, what point did you say, okay, I think we're ready to go get some new customers?
So we got customers by accident. So we had a dormant website, the old one that just sat there. We did nothing. I had no marketing people, no marketing anything. We just had a website, and leads would come into me through the website, and I'd be like, okay, like onesie twosies. So I would just respond to them, and then I'd say, here's what the platform does, and like if you like it exactly as it is, you can have it. I'll take your order, thank you. And if you don't, then go away. And that was my sales pitch, and not quite that rude, but basically. And then we continued to pick up customers, and I was like,
Oh my
more
gosh.
customers right now. We're rebuilding a platform, and then every customer we put on it, we have to move to the new one, and we weren't going to charge for that either. So it's just like, and it was a major
Right.
lift. It took 18 months to move the customers. By the time we did it, we had 52 legal entities. And there were 25 customers that had 52 legal entities under them. And those 52 individual databases that we had set up in the old platform had to be sent into a multi-tenant, multi-data database. And the very last one was a large company that we just lost last year. We'd had for 11 years. And they were huge. And I was like, oh. And they were the last ones to go because they were like, well, it has to be perfectly... what we had done when we started the company is we said to the customers, tell us what you need. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to build that feature set and shore up the old platform. Then we're going to just stop doing anything on this one. Build this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then we'll move you over to this one. We told them all this. They said, okay, here's a list of things we need. So we built that. And there had been quite a bit of work into that platform in terms of feature sets. So it was really feature rich. And we couldn't move customers to it until it was feature parity. And so we were like, well, they're already on the system. And we're not really trying to bring in new customers right now. So let's build all the features they need first. Then we'll add the settings area, like user management, approval channels. We'll do all that on the back end for them. And then we'll turn it and we'll make it visible, but we won't let them manually do it themselves until later when we have time to build that. So we did ass backwards, really, because you're not supposed to build a tech platform that way. You're supposed to build it in a way that people can come buy from you, turn it on themselves, set it up themselves, and use it. Well, that whole section we did after we built the whole thing. So, and we even built the purchase order module before we added the full settings module. So so the settings module came last, and it was. And we still are missing many settings we probably should have built, which are going to all go in the new version. So we kind of act onesie twosies, got some customers, and then we were like, all right, now we're done with the old one. We've got the new one. Now the onesie twosies isn't going to give me the hockey stick that I need to raise money, and I'm like, when I'm struggling to raise money, and so I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I started hiring consultants. I'm like, get a marketing person first, who's like going to get us a new web page, which was our first thing. Get a new presence online. Get some SEO stuff happening, because I didn't even understand what that was at the time. I'm an accountant, not a marketer, and so I had a woman help me for a bit. She's like, oh, well, I said I need to get 50. No, I said I need to get like 25 more customers this year, and she's like, that'll be no problem. And I'm like, really? I don't know. And I think we didn't even come close to that. So I was like, okay, 2016. Then we got lucky in 2017. We did start to see some traction. And in 2017, Sage came knocking on my LinkedIn door, and they have an office here in Vancouver, and they charged one of the product managers in Vancouver to look for an AP automation partner. And so they surveyed their customers in North America and said, what add-on that you don't have now would you pay extra to get? And the number one add-on was AP automation tool. And so they went, okay, we need to find that, because they wanted to pull their customers from annual maintenance and support model to subscription model. Even if they didn't move them to a cloud product, they wanted to at least move the model over to subscription. They called it cloud, which really meant a billing change and a bit of a hybrid. They have hybrid desktop applications, so they have some web connectivity baked into them, but the database still sits on your server in your office. So it's not true cloud in that way. So they asked us they shortlisted us against AvidXchange, Bill.com, Use, and we're like, I'm like, wow, okay, Avid's going to win that one. I don't know how we can. And so I said, well, we'll give it a go. But we absolutely had the more superior product, and still do, across all of those. And so they loved the product. We had built a very seamless integration with Sage 300 at that point, and we just had signed up a Sage 100 and a Sage 50 customer. So we just built the integrations through our sync tool, and our integrations were really, really slick. And so they looked at that and they said, the integration's better, the UI's better. They're Canadian, which means they can service two markets. The US competitors are still only in the US, so they were not going to be able to have taxes up here, or VAT taxes. And in fact, it's Avid's been around for 20 plus years, and they still don't exist outside of the US. So it's just like, it's kind of surprising. But and they're like $1 billion valuation as a company. It's crazy.
Interesting, isn't it?
It's a big market. I mean, the U.S. is huge, and AP automation in every country is a big market. So even in Canada, it's a big market. So we're like, okay, we're going for it. And then at the end, it was just it was between us and Avid, and Avid was bigger than us, and they didn't want to give them the deal terms that they were looking for. And I said, we're small. We'll do what you want. What do you want? And they said, we want this. Done. Let's paper it. And that was, at that time, it's 6 customers, and now we have over 600 Sage customers. And one of their largest ISVs. So that gave us a really good start from the Sage piece, but that was hard to get going too. Like getting the flywheel of channel is also hard. So really what happened.
Yeah, well, let's pause right there for a second, because I think that's important. And a lot of the CEOs listening do work through the channel. So you got that inked, and then but that just doesn't make the money flow in.
No.
now you have to do the work, right? You got to get that channel flowing. So, how did you do
Well, it
that?
started with a whole lot of education, right? So we were in the early stages of that curve of crossing the chasm. We weren't really across the chasm yet in AP automation as an industry, or certainly not for us as a product. And so we were out there looking for those innovators. And Sage, because they were white labeling us, they supported the education process. So in 2017,
Oh,
I went from trade show to trade show to trade show to trade show with Sage, and I was on stage. I think I've got all sorts of those badges hanging over there for the 2 years that I was.
right. From each different trade show
Even
lanyard, right?
before we had it ready to go, because we had to build a white label version of it, we had to get their SKUs set up and get on the price book and do all that. So months, 6 months before that even happened, I started traveling with their teams and going to all the Sage trade shows in Canada and the US, and just start talking about AP automation, educate people on that this this problem exists, because they were all nod their heads as I would identify the pain points, and we all commiserate together as a group in the room, because I'm an accountant with them going, it hurts, right, when this stupid thing happens and that stupid thing happens, and they all, because we all get it
Right.
in accounting. And so they're like, yeah, my gosh, yes, 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 that's the problem. And I go, guess what? Poof, I have a solution for you. Yeah, and it solves all of those headaches. And then they go, where do I sign up? And literally, when I would do that, there'd be like a storms of people hitting our booth right after my session. Every time, like clockwork, my staff would be like, oh my God, gather, like 35 people just showed up. And I said, well, we're not ready yet. We're taking a list of early adopters to this project, this program. And when it's ready, we'll contact you. So that was like the initial interest was huge. And then what happened was, once we actually, and just from customers, demand was high. And then when we actually got on the price book and we started doing it, the number one problem we ran into, partners. We didn't consider the
Ah,
partners. And so the customers were yelling for the product, and the partner said, wait a minute, I'm the trusted advisor. I don't know who these people are. They're brand new at Sage. Sage swaps out ISVs all the time. We don't know if these guys are going to be around in 2 years. Don't buy the product. And they stopped. And I was
oh,
like, what the? Not all partners, but most of them. And so then it became oh my God, now we have to find somebody who
yeah.
the partners trust, who we can hire, who we can get the doors open with partners, which we did. And so we got that going. And then it was just process, like just our sales leader at this
Mm,
point was like, he's good, fantastically running the non-Sage partner stuff. And so it's like, okay, you got to figure out how to turn the partner channel on and get the partners to behave the way we want them to. And it really came down to supporting them with marketing. So most of them are really small mom and pop shop style businesses. They're like, I
right.
don't have a marketing team, so we lent them our marketing team, and we're like, okay, we're gonna give you a development channel manager who's going to work with you to do marketing campaigns and webinars for your customer base, and then you're gonna make money, and we're gonna do all the work. And that's basically what we did to get it going, and that from a channel perspective. But all of that actually starts with me finding my true business partner in life, Kareem Benjafar, who was my sixth sales consultant, maybe. Well, he's certainly my seventh head of sales when I finally did get.
Oh my goodness.
I tried and experimented with consultants that were very expensive and provided zero value. And then I moved on to hiring heads of sales who did nothing, who didn't know how to turn on a sales engine. And I didn't know that's what I was looking for either. And I thought I was supposed to be doing all that stuff. And so I was trying to be sales
Right.
CEO. And what really changed was I'd started working with Kareem when he had left the company that I met him through another company, but he was working for them. So I just emailed him, hey, could you help me? And when he was finally free to help, he reached back and said, I can help you. So when we started working together, I knew right away this
Yeah.
guy knows what he's talking about. He was like radically different than anything I'd experienced at that point. And I said, I need you to assess my director of sales and tell me if he knows what he's doing or not, because he sounds good. All salespeople are good at selling themselves, and if
Oh
they're
yeah.
definitely not good salespeople. So I'm like, okay, I don't know if he knows how to do the things we need, which is like the beginning of everything, like commission structures. What's the right commission structure in the early days? What type of salespeople do you need in the early days? What's your strategy? All that go to market stuff. It's not even just a go to market strategy. It's everything you have to do even before you execute on the physical strategy of going to market. It's setting
Right.
up the structure. So
Yeah, I always tell people you have to get ready to sell before you can
yeah,
go
and I
sell.
knew
Like everybody just wants to go sell. I'm like, it just doesn't work like that. There's a lot of work to do before you go
and
sell.
even just understanding that, right? And the whole marketing demands. In our case, we really what happened was he showed up and he said, "Look, this is a fantastic product. We just need to put it in front of the right audience, and it's going to sell like hotcakes." And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you. Can you just tell me how the hell to do that? And so, in fact, can you just do that because it's in my area? And then he was just consulting. And I went to Hawaii with my family usually we had a timeshare there, so we'd go there for a 1 week holiday. And I was reading Steve Jobs' biography, and I'm dyslexic, so reading for me is challenging, and I like audiobooks. But this was like this big, thick book, and I'm like, I'm going to read it. I'm very interested in his history. And so I'd gotten about halfway through the book after 2 other vacations, and I still hadn't finished the book. Oh. So on the third one, I'm like, I'm going to finish this book. So I got most of the way through it, and on the way home, I had a little bit left. I'm like, instead of watching a movie, I'm going to finish this book on this flight. So as I was reading that section of it, it came to me that Steve Jobs was not a sales CEO. And all this time I thought he was, because the way he's portrayed in movies and all that.
Right.
He was a product CEO, and his passion was product, and he hired the right people to do the sales side. And I was like, what am I trying to be? Something I'm not. I am a product CEO. I love product. I know what the audience wants. I am the customer. I do not need I should not be trying to make myself something I'm not. But Kareem, now he's a sales leader and he knows how to do this stuff. So I landed on the tarmac, texted him, meet me tomorrow morning at 6:30 on the treadmill at Steve Nash. He said, okay. And because we normally would go do that on Tuesdays, I'm like, nope, I need to talk to you tomorrow morning first thing. So we're on the treadmill at 6:30 and I'm like, okay, I don't care what it costs me. If I have to give up my own paycheck, I need you to come work. I'm like marching along on the treadmill. I need you to work for me full time by May. This was March, and he's like, what? I said, this I know this. You are the person I need to get this working. I'll give you whatever the hell you want. Just and I won't negotiate. You just tell me what it's going to cost me. And I had this number in my head that was quite large and astronomically more than I paid myself at the time, but I knew he would be worth every penny. And he actually asked for less. And then I was like quite surprised, and I was like, okay, really? Oh, all right then. And we made a deal that would transition him over time into what I needed him to be, and the rest is history. He showed up. He brought his number 2, which is my current VP of sales, and who started as a sales coach, became our sales manager, sales director, now VP of sales, and he's turned on a machine that took us from where were we at? We were probably hovering around $500,000 in revenue at that point. So I was 250 in year 1. And now I'm 500 in 2016. This is late 2016, early 2017 late. I think it's 2017 when he came on payroll. But so that's how long, like 5 years, and all we did was double our revenue over 5 years. So we then went 2017 to 2021. We went from the $500,000 to 2021. We landed at 8 million Canadian. So that's the difference. And we started.
Amazing.
Got to 85%, then I got to 110%, then it was 100%, then COVID came and it dropped to 70% during COVID. 2 years back to back, and this year we'll get back up over 100, unless our stops us.
Well, I know you. I could talk to you all day. I love your story, and I know you've got to get moving. So I want to wrap up, but I want to point out a couple things to everybody listening that you mentioned that I think are just so important and made you unique. I mean, the fact that you guys built a superior product, of course, that's amazing. But right, we know a lot of companies build superior products and still don't make it. So that's not the key. I think some of the things that you mentioned that you did as CEO, one of them being a speaker, I think that being a speaker gives you an unfair advantage above your competitors because people see you and they believe what you believe, and then they want to sign up for it. And you did that. You created that momentum by being willing as the CEO. Listen, we all know as CEO, you got to run everything, and you're also doing sales, and doing this speaking. And so I think that gave you a really good advantage and really got that momentum going, right? And even though you weren't really ready for them yet, you did it. And then, you were very thoughtful on the product side about how, okay, we don't want to bring too many people on because we're going to have to move them all over to these other platforms. But you were thinking through that the whole time. So you were growing sensibly for what you could do at that time so that you didn't implode, right? Which I think was a key as well. And then I love it when you finally realized, oh my gosh, I'm a product CEO. I'm not the sales CEO. I don't really know how to do this sales thing, as evidenced by these consultants who failed me and the sales leaders I hired that didn't do, and the salespeople that didn't do what I expected them to do. So what I'm going to do is find somebody who really knows sales and get them on board. And you did it, and took you to where you are today, and being acquired, which is just phenomenal. So I thank you. And in parting, I guess I just ask you, what would you have to say for other CEOs who are going through the same kinds of things you are, to help them, know that they can do it too, right? You did it and they can too.
I think the biggest lesson I learned along the way is the team that gets you from point A to point B is not the same team that gets you from B to C, C to D, D to E. We're kind of D to E right now. And some people can make the journey with you. Not very many. So far, I think I have three people that have been there from the beginning. But you have to understand there are different phases and there are different skill sets needed for each phase, and you're not a failure because you're not an expert at that thing at that stage. The only thing you need to be good at is recognizing the stage quickly and changing out the skill set and getting the right skill set for the next phase, and keep doing that over and over again. If you can do that, then you'll be successful.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. This was just great. We'll have to do it again because I'm sure we have a lot more things to talk about. So thanks for being on the show,
Thank you very much,
Catherine.
Alice. It's been lovely. Look forward to seeing you when you're next in town.
Thanks for tuning in to Sales Talk for CEOs. You can find me at alicehyman.com. Be sure and connect with me on LinkedIn and let me know that you heard the show. If you found value in today's episode, please subscribe, write a review, and share the show with another CEO.